So the new Mech has arrived and stirred some complaints from Helldivers saying it launched in a pre-nerf state, that it's just bad, you have to mag dump a whole Bile Titan, and that an autocannon sentry will simply perform better. So today I wanted to give a very nuanced take on the Emancipator. From playing with it all day, I don't think it's as bad as everyone's saying. However, it can be vastly improved. So before we go over the upsides and downsides of the Emancipator, I want to shout out today's sponsor, Instant Gaming. They're hosting a free game of your choice giveaway for my community. Just click the link in the description down below. And if you're looking to purchase any games at a discounted rate, just listen to my friend Bird, who says he saved 1,500 euro using their service in the past 7 years, and that Instant Gaming is the GOAT, and click the other link down below. Now, the first thing I really have to talk about with this mech is the upsides, because the Emancipator is not as bad as the day one YouTubers would have you believe. Thing is, I honestly think it's a pretty big problem that people immediately shit on everything this game puts out day one, because I actually do think Arrowhead is a pretty good gaming company compared to a lot of the other game devs out there, and the CEO literally just recently stepped down to becoming the creative director to help with the game balance, and I do think it's going to take either a patch or two, possibly 3 patches, before his ideals for this game come together. The other thing about this game is I do think it's a strategy game. A lot of the stratagems are really good for particular situations. It's not necessarily good in every situation. And the Emancipator, in my opinion, is not pre-nerfed, but at the same time, it can definitely use some quality of life upgrades, as well as some ship modules to give you more ammo. And I think it's a buff to its ammo is one of the main things it needs. It sits somewhere between A and B tier to me, where I think it is very, very viable in squads and team play, because when you have someone to support you and you guys are playing properly to cover its downsides, both of you can actively destroy entire areas of the missions. The damage of the autocannons are not bad, and I don't think the fact it has to mag dump a Bile Titan isn't really a huge problem, because number one, autocannons are best for bots, and I honestly assumed when this mech was coming out that it would be the mech that you want to take against the bots. We do have the Patriot Exosuit, which is for bugs, with an anti-tank rocket launcher and a minigun for the chaff. And by the way, the devs have previously spoken about fixing the Patriot's aim. I did see a couple devs talking about how they may add a second crosshair for the rocket itself, but currently I can only dig up this message from Twinbeard saying that they were working on it. But at the same time of that, the Emancipator is actually pretty good against bugs. When it comes to Bile Titans, if the Bile Titan is actively spitting at you and you shoot it in the head, it flinches the Bile Titan to make it so that most of the damage from the spit doesn't come your way and it won't destroy your mech. And the number 2 thing is that if anyone on the squad lands a single anti-tank shot on the head of the Bile Titan, you can easily finish off the Titan with this mech. We were using the Emancipators in the rocket defense missions, taking down multiple Titans. We probably had like 15 Titans spawn in that single defense mission. And we also destroyed everything that came our way using our entire kits together, and the Emancipator definitely held its own. It also just deals with everything underneath Bile Titans in a reasonable time. Chargers, Bile Spewers, Stalkers, Brood Commanders, and any little bugs. But you still do want to aim for weak spots. For Chargers specifically, I'll mention them. I do think you want to always aim for their leg if you get the chance. And keep in mind, if you're shooting the leg of a Charger and then you swap to a different leg and then you shoot the head a little bit and then you shoot the body, you're going to be wasting a lot of ammo, because enemies in this game have health pools that you want to focus on. Now, when it comes to all the small bugs, it really feels like you don't want to waste the ammo on them, because you are very limited in the amount of ammo it gives you. And that's where I think the main problem is with this mech is the ammo, but more on that later. So if this mech has 2 autocannons for arms, and the autocannon is pretty much one of the best weapons against automatons, was this exosuit made for the bots then? Well, yes, but we are obviously going to talk about some of the problems later on in this video as well. But that's where the damage of the Emancipator makes a lot more sense. It can take down the largest enemy, the Factory Strider, in a pretty reasonable amount of time and a reasonable amount of bullets, as well as hulks, groups of devastators, gunships, fabricators, you name it, it can pretty much deal with everything the automatons have to throw at you. Again, against the bots, you really don't want to waste any of your ammo on the small bots, and even against automatons, ammo also feels like an issue. So again, we'll touch on that more in depth in a moment. Now, in general, I found the gameplay loop against automatons very interesting. It was essentially me bringing a loadout or my teammates helping me take down every cannon turret and annihilator tank we could find. Then we can essentially shred everything else. And one thing I'd like to mention is once they fix the spears targeting, that may be a perfect combo with the Emancipator, since the spear generally does take down cannon turrets as long as it hits. And even the spear fix is slated for next patch. I do just think we need to give them a little bit of time to cook. Now, the main point is that you're not completely invincible when you're in an exosuit. You want to focus on certain enemies besides the cannon turrets and the tanks, like rocket devastators, when you are using this exosuit. But if you take the time to learn this and use the playstyle, you will find it very satisfying because it's very fun. So enough of the upsides. I think I've made my point that the Emancipator is honestly better than most people are making it out to be. It's not trash, it's not F tier, but there are some massive quality of life things they definitely need to fix on both of the exosuits, as well as a bit of buffs, or at least an access to buffing your exosuits through ship modules. Now, let's get into the downsides. I think the main thing that Arrowhead and the devs need to realize is this is a 2-use stratagem with a 10-minute cooldown. You are basically using this for your choice of 2 main objectives, or you're saving one of your uses for extract in the longer missions. So now let's finally talk about that ammo. So the amount of ammo they gave this exosuit feels viable to finish 1 main objective or 1 heavy base, or save it to defend extract, but it's not even going to defend the amount of patrols the game throws at you. But it definitely helps at extract, I'm not gonna lie. So basically pick your choice of 2 of the main things you need to do. Now on top of that, it's worth noting that when you get in an exosuit, your aggro radius is insane. When you get inside of it, literally every patrol within a pretty large radius will start aggroing you. And that means you're basically gonna need more ammo to deal with all the patrols coming your way all of a sudden. You can also just draw tons of enemies from side objectives that are nearby the main objective, or if there's a point of interest, it'll draw all those enemies over. And what I will say, as of playing with this yesterday in tons of different missions where we had the free exosuit, and I also equipped my own, so I was bringing 2 call-ins with it, that amount of call-ins felt more viable because I have the free one to call down and my own equipped. And with both exosuits taking up 2 of my stratagem slots, I probably was using the mech for less than 25% of my long missions all day, meaning that if I only had 1 mech to call down, I would probably be only using it for like 5 or 10% of a long mission in general. And so I honestly think that the power level of the mech is really comparable to the 380mm barrage. And while some of you may not like the 380, just hear me out real quick. Think about it from my perspective. From my perspective, I love the 380mm barrage. I use it to absolutely clear bases and objectives. Sometimes if there's even a huge bot drop that gets called in, or the geological survey, it wipes out tons of enemies for me. I love this stratagem. Personally, I think it's better than the orbital laser. It's often gotten me more value than the orbital laser when I compare my games throwing both of them. Now, whether you agree with me or not on the 380, that's fine. That's up to you. You can compare it to the orbital laser if you like it better, but that's how the 380 feels to me. And that's how the mech feels. The mech feels like I can clear a base with it. I can clear a big bot drop with it. I can defend extract with it. But here's the thing. The 380mm barrage only has a 240-second cooldown, and it has unlimited uses. I probably use it at least 4 to 5 times per match. In fact, a lot of times I will just straight up throw it into a heavy base, or I'll throw it at a command bunker, or I'll throw it at a different objective, and I'll just simply walk away and move on to the next thing because it'll do the job for me and I can leave, taking out the whole heavy base, taking out the whole command bunker. And if it doesn't take out that whole heavy base, usually I just have to come back later and snipe 1 fabricator. So it works really well for me. But that's where the mech feels. It feels like I can use it for 1 heavy base, or I can use it for 1 main objective. So from a pure practical standpoint, it doesn't feel like it's worth bringing over the 380mm barrage ever at all for me. And the amount of ammo you get doesn't make sense in comparison to other stratagems in this game. The only upside the mech has to the 380mm barrage in my head is that it's very fun to sit in the mech. It's really fun to feel tankier than normal. It's really fun to shoot things down myself. and I think this is one of the more cinematic experiences in the game, and I do play this game for fun, so that is a pretty big upside in my opinion. Now, the other major problem against bots is this fucker right here, the goddamn Rocket Devastator. Everyone's talking about the mech's durable damage being low, but nobody's talking about the Rocket Devastator's durable damage against us. Now, for what it's worth mentioning that against regular gunfire robots or heavy devastators, those are not priority targets for the mech. You are pretty tanky against them. You can target them last. But if we take a look at the Rocket Devastator's health and damage data, we can ignore most of this and let's zoom in right here to their damage of their rockets, which is a ballistic projectile that does 50 durable damage and then an AoE explosion, which does another 60 durable damage. Each rocket is doing 110 damage to your mech when it hits you, and our mechs are listed to have 600 health. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this 600 health is accurate or if it's possibly old and maybe they're tankier now, or if we have some explosion resistance, because the mechs did get buffed in a previous patch, but for what it's worth, I think this number is pretty close to what it is. Now, if a Rocket Devastator hits all of their rockets against the same fatal part of your body, it will technically only take 6 shots to kill you. Now, in practice, here's a clip of me just sitting in front of a couple Rocket Devastators and just seeing how many rockets it took to kill me. And it felt like about 3 to 4 volleys, because of course, not all the rockets they shot hit. Not all of them hit the same body parts, not all of them hit a fatal body part. You know, kind of like how I mentioned, if you waste ammo targeting different parts of the charger body, it's not going to kill them. Technically, they would have to hit all rockets on a fatal part of your body, which in practice really isn't going to happen. But at the same time, 3 to 4 full volleys of a Rocket Devastator when you are a very large target who aggroes the whole map really isn't a whole lot. I think there are major situations where if you get unlucky and you get a planet seed that has tons of Rocket Devastators, it will completely ruin your experience with the mech. On the other hand, if you get a seed where there's tons of heavy devastators, you will feel really good to bring the mech, since heavy devastators aren't as priority of targets while you're inside of the mech. Now, the other downside of the mech is that it does actually have relatively low durable damage in comparison to other heavy armor piercing options out there. Now, earlier I didn't say this was an issue, but in conjunction with the low ammo, it is a notable problem that we can add. It does put the mech in an awkward spot, and even though I wouldn't recommend buffing the damage, I would much rather see an ammo buff. It is a downside worth mentioning in this video. And finally, the other downside is the aim. And now I did mention I saw some messages in the Discord that the devs are considering adding a second crosshair to the Patriot Exosuit, but a second crosshair on this mech won't make sense since you're often firing both autocannons at the same time. Now, unfortunately, in this game, the aiming is just weird given that all the reticles on all the weapons are also off, but that's unfortunately with how they coded this game's aiming and that the projectiles physically come from the weapons, and that's not really how most shooters work. I think one way to improve this for the mech specifically is to change the mech's camera angle to put it above it and center the aim rather than leaning to one side of the mech, because if you put it above the camera above the mech and center the aim a bit more, the single reticle will work for both autocannons. So with the upsides and downsides out of the way, what are some of the ways we can improve this mech to have a reasonable power level for the uses and the cooldowns you get? Well, number one, I think they need to add an entire ship module section for the mech. The first one being the ammo upgrade. Or maybe this isn't listed first, but it should definitely be in there. The Emancipator would simply feel much better with 125 ammo per arm. That way I can use it to clear an objective or a base, but if I played well, I kept my Emancipator alive, it could help me walk over and start working on a second objective or a second base. I mean, it's not like I'm just going to walk over there for free either. I'm going to have to face a couple patrols on the way. And when you compare it to the Patriot having 14 rockets that can 3-shot the Bile Titans, as well as a 1,000-round minigun for the chaff, they put that Emancipator in an awkward middle ground where it takes a decent amount of ammo for the big guys, but you also don't want to waste any of the bullets for the chaff. But you also want to hop out of your mech and focus on those cannon turrets so they don't snipe you. It's just a bit too many angles that you're really thinking about while using this, and I think a severe ammo buff or a ship module to give you a severe ammo buff is definitely warranted. The second improvement we could talk about would definitely be nerfing Rocket Devastators as well as the regular Rocket Troopers because they have the same damage. Definitely nerf both of their durable damage. Now, I understand thematically they have rocket launchers, which are traditionally for heavier enemies or anti-tank in that sense, but I'm already worried about every cannon turret, every tank, Technically, I do have to focus the Hulks because those will kill you, but at the same time, it is a deadly enemy for the mech, and it's one of the elite enemies. I think it's okay for them to be able to kill you. It's just that I think rocket devastators and regular troops are way too common of an enemy to be able to just take down your Emancipator. Feel it's weird to have my 2-use stratagem just completely get demolished by an extremely common enemy. And I've even had them destroy my mech before I'd have had a chance to hop in, which was extremely unlucky, but it does happen. Basically, how I feel about it is if this is a 2-use stratagem, only let the elite style enemies kill me. Hulks, tanks, cannon turrets, and so on. Don't let all the chaff just easily mow me down with a couple volleys of rockets. Now, the third improvement I think is worth adding onto this is a stratagem thrower. Now, in the first Helldivers, your mech had a stratagem thrower, and I would like to see that in this game as well. Number one, it's just very clunky to get out and reinforce your teammates when they end up dying, but also being able to throw stratagems would offset some of the power weaknesses you have if you could throw rocket pods towards cannon turrets or tanks, throw down an orbital rail cannon strike, etc. That could leave you time to deal with the rocket devastators or vice versa. If I could throw an Eagle airstrike towards those rocket devastators, then I could focus some of the bigger threats a lot easier. Now, the fourth improvement I would like to throw out there, and this is one of the wackier ones, but I do think it would be kind of cool, would be a ship module to make the backpacks more effective for your mech. Being able to run the shield generator backpack would tremendously help your survivability. Or being able to run one of the guard dog backpacks without them mounting and going away would be great for dealing with the chaff and not wasting all my ammo on the little guys like I mentioned. I think some really cool improvements and systems could be thrown into this to make this stratagem more unique and make people want to take it just for different gimmicky reasons. A lot of people like gimmicks, they like specific weapons, like you'll see an arc thrower player, you'll see a flamethrower player. People really do enjoy the gimmicks that are added onto different things, and I think a gimmick such as backpacks being effective would draw in a lot of players to using this, regardless of that big downside of being only 2 uses and a 10-minute cooldown. All in all, I honestly do think that the Emancipator is a lot better than people are giving it credit for on day one, given that it does take some strategic thinking to be able to use it effectively. On top of that, it is simply one of the most fun and cinematic experiences in the game. But at the same time, I think what both exosuits need, especially the Patriot rockets, is some aim training. Crosshair needs to hit where you aim it, and the Emancipator could mainly use an ammo buff. And both of these exosuits could use some ship modules to take them to the next level, and also gatekeep some of the power from earlier players and make people spend some resources to make these stronger. So, if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.